Come on, you maggots. We don't have much time left. You shouted at the top of your lungs.
Working as fast as we can, boss.
Hissing, you turned around, returning into your office. You are surrounded by idiots. Another one of those heavenly purges was approaching quickly. But an order from your overboss to push more product out last minute was making you sweat. And your heart race. You were a sinner, demon. Meaning you had been once human, condemned to heck for your crimes. But a gal like you had her standards. As terrible as the cards were that life had dealt you. As a human, you had been the personal plaything of a cartel boss. His little doll, as he put it. Of course, the bastard gave you your first taste of the otherworldly pleasure that was drugs. Addiction soon followed. And you had been humiliated into being his pet. To personally mistreat whenever he was mad just for another hit. And of course, one of his beatings, you didn't survive. Just one of many. You awoke in hell as a low-grade demon, called a marionette, due to you being so easily controlled. Long wires came out of your wrists and feet, and even your head. Your skin was pearly white with a slight orange sheen to it. And your hair, minus the wire, was completely grey. It was thanks to a collection of lucky circumstances that led you on the same path you had been on when you were alive. Or were it more unlucky circumstances? Regardless, some small-time gangster boss took a liking to you at a club, and you just went with it, due to being used to it. Though if you had known that this admittedly very short partnership would lead to you taking over his business and getting one of the top overlords interested in you, you maybe would have been more optimistic about this entire thing from the beginning. The drug operation was dedicated to the production of a drug simply called lemon candy. It was sourced from a demon species called candy demons, quite fittingly. They were tall, lanky figures with rough, linen thread-like skin. The things looked like tall voodoo dolls. Their mouths were lined with sharp teeth, and their arms so long they dragged behind themselves. Their mouths were lined with sharp teeth, and their arms so long they dragged their hands behind themselves. They had a unique stomach that made it difficult to fully digest food, making it perfect for fermenting. By force-feeding them gummy bears and a concoction made of multiple highly addictive medication, a wet lemon-flavored blob was created in their stomach, which would simply be pulled out straight out of their tummies. As disgusting as the treat was, it gave a high that was out of this world, according to one of the addicts. It made you feel alive. And that's the product that was now in danger of falling into the hands of the approaching angels. If they saw your operation, they would definitely hesitate killing you. No, not because they would show mercy, but just to torture you a little bit more. The last bits of lemon candy were currently wrapped in paper, as you were nervously tapping your fingers on your work desk. You knew your boss was watching you. He was powerful enough to keep tabs on all of his minions. While not officially affiliated with him, he granted you some protection. Wasn't a daily occurrence an overlord of hell was interested in a dingy operation like yours. Of course you had deducted why. This was all bait. Your operation, small, seemingly unaffiliated demon gang setup, pushing a semi-rare drug, that was something everybody wanted to get their claws on. Your overboss just wanted to kill whoever was power-hungry enough to waste a few good men on you and your boys. But of course, during the Purge, he was gone. Your phone suddenly rang, making you jump. Hello? Oh, darling, so nice to hear your little pathetic voice. You gulped. It was your boss. Good evening, Alastor, sir. I just wanted to make sure you haven't abandoned your post, my dear. Oh, never, sir, you stuttered. It is just that there is a bloodthirsty band of angelic holy beings on its way to eradicate your miserable existence. It's not my first Purge, sir, you muttered. What was that, darling? Nothing, you gulped audibly. I was just saying that we will keep producing candy until the very end, sir. A bead of sweat ran down your forehead. You could feel the radio demon's shit-eating grin as he was quiet for a moment. If you survive, remember to call me so I know I don't have to replace you with someone else. Yes, sir. Of course, sir. The ground suddenly shook as the noise of an explosion exploded all windows in your office and the warehouse you used for operation. They're here, my darling. I have to go. Ta-ta. Ta-ta. Sorry. Goodbye, sir. You slammed the phone on its station. Quickly and pathetically, you crawled on your desk in the fetal position. You closed your eyes and pressed your hands on your ears as you heard the screams of your boys. You had learned in life it was better to cower in fear than to fight back. That's why you sucked up to the first more powerful guy you had met. That's why you had betrayed said guy in favor of the next stronger guy, who at least just so happened to be one of the strongest. So at least your loyalty was guaranteed. Even though your guys outside were practically being devoured with how easy it was for the angels to cut them down, they still fought for your sake and the operations. About half of them just wanted to get into your pants, but the other half genuinely appreciated that you treated them like peons, rather than the worthless dirt others treated them as. It was just a tad bit better than what they were used to. Make them just loyal enough to not immediately flee. Plus, they probably were just bloodthirsty sociopaths. After 90 seconds, you counted, it was quiet in the warehouse. Of course, everywhere else, the screams of the damned echoed like the lullaby of death itself. And you exhaled, relaxing for just a second. But as your lungs were emptied, you heard loud steps stomp the metal stairs to your office. The engines could float. There was roughly a 1% chance it was another demon. The white light shining through the broken office door window, accompanied by a dark silhouette wielding a large spear, well, that was obvious indication for the 99% chance to be the case. In horror, you watched the desk be lifted by the being after it kicked down your door. It was holding up your heavy hardwood desk with but 2 fingers. The angel stared you down. Pathetically, you squealed and crawled backwards without breaking eye contact. The angel's head slowly following you until your back hit the wall. Carelessly, the being threw your desk out of the window that oversaw your production. The angel took a step forward. Hey, hi, I'm Stella, you stuttered. But my customers call me Candy. You tapped your fingers together. You can call me Candy? That is if you want to be a customer. You wouldn't want a BJ or anything in exchange for my life. The angel didn't respond. It just took another step forward. The angel didn't respond with words. It just took another step forward. Rapidly, you blinked as you thought. Hey, could I, maybe, sample, my boss's drugs one last time? No? I assumed, I can't fault the girl for trying. The angel took another step. Tears began to burst out of your eyes. But then, the angel pointed the pointy end of its spear at you before waving it over to your phone. Oh, you want to know the location of my boss? Pathetically, you scrambled to stand up on your feet. They felt like jelly, and you were shaking all over. You really don't want me to get on my knees and work on... Offended, the angel shook his head, almost unnoticeably. Of course you knew the location of Alastor, or more his rough location, or at least the location that he told you. And then you pressed your eyes shut. For a horrifying moment, your heartbeat felt louder than the screams outside. You exhaled and then... I'm not telling you! You shouted. Ah, good job, my darling. I knew I could count on you. That voice. Quickly you opened your eyes. You were in an entirely different location all of a sudden. It appeared to be a sort of study with crimson red carpet, scarlet red walls, and bookshelves so high you couldn't see the upper end of them. Behind you, you heard the crackling noise of a fireplace. On a red lounger, holding up a cup of tea, sat your overboss. Your mouth formed the words, "Am I dead?" No, you're not, my dear. I simply teleported you out of there. See it as a simple curiosity on my end. But the angel was right there. When did you teleport me? Around the time you closed your eyes. Alastor placed the cup of tea on a tiny plate on a nearby coffee table and stood up. Gosh, he was so much taller than you. And you didn't tell him of my, admittedly fake, location. Now, what I would find interesting would be knowing why you stayed hush-hush. Was it for my sake, or... He paused, and you blinked, expecting him to say something, but after 2 minutes of mind-melting silence between the two of you, you opened your mouth. I was dead either way, you muttered. Had I said where your location is, fake or not, I would have died by the angel, or you. That is very perceptive, my little darling. But that's to be expected from someone of your vocation. You blushed. If you allow me, sir, why did you save me? As I said, curiosity, darling. Did you not listen? Your heart stopped for a second. He stepped closer to you. Each step he took, you lowered your gaze further and further. And by the time he stood before you, you were staring at the tips of his shoes. From somewhere you watched his hand appear, and with a single finger he pushed you face up. Breathlessly you stared into Alastor's blood-red glowing eyes, his finger on your chin, preventing you to avert your gaze. It was a strangely intimate gesture for someone notoriously stuck up and uninterested in romance. And to your surprise, his face was coming closer. Once it was so close you could feel his breath wave over your face. You instinctively pursed your lips, preparing for a kiss. Only for his thumb to press onto your mouth. Such a well-trained little toy. He made a grimace akin to the smile of a gorilla, ready to brutalize whatever chimp had dared to oppose him. I only wanted you to smile, my dear. Alastor narrowed his eyes. His thumb now pushing past your lips. His skin tasted like a mix of salt and ash. Alastor's thumb pressing down on your tongue as your eyes widened. He stopped speaking, but you knew from experience what he wanted. Slowly, cautiously, your tongue slipped out from beneath his finger before rubbing against it. You made a very quiet noise. You had been trained to moan in these situations, but unless Alastor allowed you to be noisy, you better not make a single sound. A sudden, quiet, unintentional smack of your suckling echoed inside the room for what felt like an eternity. You gulped down a thick glob of anxious salvia. You didn't know how long you were sucking. You stopped counting, for you knew you would be dead the moment he pulled his finger out. But once he finally did, a thin line of spittle connecting your lower lip with his thumb, before finally breaking off. And with an almost disgusted facial expression, he wiped his hand on a handkerchief, which he then carelessly threw behind you into a fireplace. After taking on a more dignified position, Alastor sat back down on his chair. Crossing his legs, he grinned at you as if the silent exchange just now didn't happen. I'd like you to get ready for something special tomorrow. Okay. You don't know it yet. It hasn't been in the news at all, but, well, tomorrow it will be in the news, my darling. You gulped. Tell me, you don't have an aversion for hotels, do you? His eyes slowly opened. They hurt, feeling like they were covered in sand, heavy and burning. His breaths came short. He was weak. He tried pulling up his hand to rub them, but his wrists exploded with a sharp pain. Immediately the snake was fully awake, realizing that he wasn't anywhere comfortable. The ground was tiled with a drain in the middle. The walls naked concrete. A singular light bulb hung above his head. The music of the nightclub came very muffled, so he must still be in the building. Unintentionally he sniffed and shuddered. Now he smelled it. Blood. But not just from a singular demon. Many demons. Both hellborn and not. His neck hood shriveled closely to his scalp for comfort. Trying to move his tail led to the same pain he felt around his wrists, and after curiously looking down, he realized why. He was bound with barbed wire. If he wasn't careful, one of his secondary eyes may get damaged. Whoever tied him up, however, made painfully sure that unless he tried to wiggle himself out of this, they would go unharmed. Clever. Really clever. Was this one of these saw traps? He had seen the movies. Nefty had put them on the other day for movie night. They had given him nightmares. But what did he learn from them? That the mutilation sometimes is worth it. Right. And that some traps can't be escaped from. Interestingly enough, those happen to be Nifty's favorite traps. Sadly, his survival instincts still prevented him from tearing through the barbed wires. So he was stuck here, until the silly puppet told him how to get out. Or at least, how he was supposed to get out. Meanwhile, upstairs on the dance floor, Angel Dust was frantically looking for Sir Pentious, the snake demon. This was supposed to be a bonding experience, all set up and paid by Charlie. Or in other words, a night out drinking with your best pal. But if Angel returned to the hotel without the snake, he'd have to go look for the demon regardless. In his search, he suddenly bumped into a hooded figure. Sorry, Toots. I'm looking for a friend. Quietly, you watched as the spider demon vanished in the mass of other patrons. You noted that he had particularly nice fur. How cute. Without letting yourself be bothered by the other patrons, you stepped towards a guarded metal door in the back rooms of the club. Is he here? You asked. The guards nodded respectfully, and you smiled. They opened the metal door for you with a bow. Your chosen name was Mariah, a deal maker, working under the overlords in their name, for things that they considered too small. It was a special job. You could freely terrorize lesser beings with your contracts. All you needed to do was make sure that the overlords got a certain percentage of whatever you made. But that was fine with you. It got you into a few lucrative spots. Your favorite being for Carmela Carmine, the primary supplier of weapons in hell. And she was the one who sent you here. Whenever a being she considered not deserving of her attention, she sent you. To collect the debts. Especially since she was the type to avoid violence herself. Ironic, really. You, of course, weren't. You descended the stairs with cold, calculated grace. The club's basement reeked of spilled alcohol and debauchery, though there also was a hint of blood. You stopped at a marked metal door. Looking past its bars, you saw the bound Sir Pentious. He was struggling with the stinging pain of the barbed wires. Such a vulgar thing, wasting so much precious pain on something as frivolous as being bound. You opened the door, and the snake stared at your direction like a hunted animal. He watched as a silhouette entered the cone of his light.
I assume you are the one who wants to speak with me?
You chuckled. Speak would be an understatement, my dear Pentious. He gulped.
Who are you?
I am Mariah. I was sent by the Carmines to collect your debt. The snake gulped.
I don't have the money right now.
Oh, I was hoping you'd say that.
With me, I mean, it's in my room in the hotel. I promise.
You chuckled darkly, as if you would fall for that trick. Well, you had ample time to pay, so it doesn't matter anymore, if you have it or not. You pulled over a metal tray. On it you placed a leather pouch. Unfolding it, it revealed a small selection of surgical tools, clean and glistening in the light.
But I can't pay.
If you can, why am I here? He bit his tongue out of frustration.
Well, I must have forgotten to pay early, but I have enough. Just let me make a phone call, please.
I don't do phone calls. You place an hourglass on the tray. See this? This is something nifty made by Voxtech. This little hourglass measures the pain I inflict on you against the debt that you have. And I will not stop until every grain of sand has left the upper bulb.
Do I still have to pay afterwards?
You grinned as you took your hood off. Her eyes were closed, and Pentious blushed. You were deceptively cute. Outwardly, you appeared like an adorable bunny. You had long ears. Your face was covered in cloud-like, silky smooth fur in a light pastel pink. Between your ears, you had the remnants of horns that were broken off. Your red nose had the shape of a little heart.
A Volpertinger,
he muttered. So you were a sinner demon. Good to know, he thought. Volpertinger demons were demons whose grudge towards people was so strong they committed heretical acts to take revenge upon them, making you perfect for your kind of work. You and all of your kind were ruthless, going above and beyond to get revenge on anyone who ever wronged you or the people you worked with.
What's with that get-up?
You tilted your head. A face as adorable as mine is often the victim of needless ass-grabbing. And I'm here to hurt you, and only you. Not them. It's just business. Pentious gulped as he watched you pull out a pair of tongs. Now I find the experience is much more pleasant when I explain to you what I'm about to do. You see, the threat is just as effective as actually doing it, Pentious. You smiled as you stepped towards him. As a snake, I'm sure you have a venomous bite, and I'm sure you're very proud of it. Lucky me, my fur will keep me safe, but I still don't want to risk it. So let's get rid of these little biters, won't we? With a hand, you squeezed his lower jaw, forcing his mouth open. With a smile, you tapped your tongs against his long fangs. His eyes widened as the metal squeezed down on the right one. The snake breathed heavily through his nose. And then, with but a single powerful yet slow pull, you removed the fang from his gums. You took a step back to allow him to scream, blood spewing from the wound. As you inspected his tooth in the light of the bulb, it was long in a beautiful crimson red. A little piece of ripped-off flesh was at its end, still pulsating as purple venom uselessly was pushed out of a tiny hole at the tooth's tip. Grow up, you chuckled. Grabbing the hourglass, you tapped it again. Grabbing the hourglass, you tapped the tooth against it.
Just look how few grains have just now fallen, Sir Pentious. We aren't done yet, not even in the slightest. And we won't be done for a while.
After he finished coughing, he hung his head low. He felt so powerless. And his mouth hurt so much, he didn't even want to talk anymore. But when you grabbed his chin again, he struggled as hard as he could against his restraints. If at least you opened your eyes, he could try hypnotizing you. Ah! You pulled, but stopped. The hairs on your neck were standing up. What is this feeling? You whispered. Shaking your head, you pulled again, only for the feeling to return. It was fully enveloping you, kinda like fear. Frustrated, you pulled hard enough to rip the tooth out, this time, however, with more strength, which led to less pain. But it still hurt the demon a lot. You then turned to face the door. Someone's coming, you muttered angrily. You hated interruptions. Oh, thank God, whimpered Sir Pentious. You heard someone run from the hallway towards your door. You braced yourself. It swung open with a loud bang. Before you stood a gray-skinned woman with white hair and only a singular eye. She was heaving. Clearly she ran. A lot. Spear in hand, while someone shouted behind her, "Vaggie, wait for me!" "I don't know who you are, and I don't care, but that snake belongs to us," she shouted. You grinned, revealing your sharp teeth. "Oh, really now? So, are you going to pay his debt then?" Your words were filled with venom. You hated interruptions. You wanted to kill this demon for her insolence, but better see what happens next. Her eye twitched, and with the back of your hand you slapped the spear out of her grip. Surprised at your strength, she stared at her now empty palms. "Stronger than I thought," she muttered, impressed. But just then, someone else appeared at the door. Such an undignified ruckus today. "Vaggie, are you... Oh dear, Sir Pentious!" You suppressed a gasp. The girl behind the one-eyed demon was blonde, small, and was dressed all red. She was familiar. Yes, you had seen her. Charlie! The Princess of Hell. Hello, hi. My friend Angel Dust said that, our friend was gone? She said as she walked past her rapid attack dog. She scratched the back of her head awkwardly. May I, know what's going on here? Your face shifted from Vaggie to Charlie. I'm only doing my job. The snake has a debt to pay. I'm here to collect. He has no money, so I'm here to punish him. Okay, but... Charlie raised a finger. But, don't you think he suffered enough? You scoffed. I only ripped out 2 of his teeth. My job here isn't even halfway done. You pointed at your hourglass. Charlie gulped. Okay, then, how about it is done? I don't quite follow. He's here for debt, correct? Can I pay it? What? Charlie! Vaggie interrupted. You said you'd let me handle it, Vaggie. Please let me handle it. Growling, the grey demon turned towards her spear, picking it up. She walked outside, leaning against the wall opposite to the door's opening. She was staring daggers at you. How pleasant. Do you have money on you, Charlie? You scoffed. Well, not here with me, but... Then I continue. No, please, just... Charlie slipped around you, wrapping an arm around Sir Pentious in a comforting way. With a sad face, she looked at the barbed wires. Maybe he doesn't need to pay? You frowned. Why should that be? He's at the Hazbin Hotel. He's trying to redeem himself. You snorted. Redemption was a joke. And I know that sounds funny considering the circumstances, but... You raised a finger to interrupt her. I have already been paid to inflict pain equal to the debt he owes to Camilla. Right, but... I will inflict that pain. Right, but... Charlie inhaled. Sir Pentious wishes to be redeemed and ascend to heaven. If he does that, all contracts and debts are null and void. Correct? I suppose... You crossed your arms. So if I lend Sir Pentious the money to calm down Camilla, you obviously still have to inflict the pain, correct? You nodded. Correct. But if he ascends, then you don't have to inflict the pain anymore, correct? Because he's no longer in reach? You shrugged. You're technically correct. And arguably that's the best kind of correct.
What are you doing, Charlie?
Hissed Sir Pentious. You clapped into your hands. Well, in that case, it's an easy deal. You opened your eyes, finally, which made Charlie flinch and take a step back. Your eyes were mortifying. Purple orbs filled with countless moving, screaming, tormented souls. Like all dealmakers, you had pride in your soul collection. Maggie's stomach turned as she looked at them. And holding out your hand, you spoke. I will wait for Sir Pentious. Should he, as expected, fail to ascend, I will deliver the full punishment. His sentence is hereby merely suspended till further notice. Should he ascend in the unlikely scenario, however, I will treat it like he never existed. And of course, you pay the debt owed to Camilla, so I can still tell her that I did the job correctly. After all, I have a reputation to uphold. Okay, but... Charlie gently pushed your hand away. No dealy makey, more like a promisey makey? You narrowed your eyes, black smoke puffing out of your broken horns. Are you making fun of me? No, never. Just, can't we just promise and stuff? She isn't Alastor, Charlie, scoffed Vaggie. Yes, but I don't want to gamble someone else's soul or my own on this. A moment of tense silence ensued, only interrupted by the quiet dripping noise of Sir Pentious' bleeding mouth.
Double the debt, then,
Hissed Sir Pentious.
and make the deal with me.
He cried out before exhaling loudly. Did he seriously just say that? The silence was mind-breaking. Or not. but your lips had already perked up into a grin. Snapping your fingers, the barbed wires around his hands unraveled. His hands twitched as he rubbed his wrists. You pushed your face into his, your purple eyes glowing dangerously. All he could see were the screaming faces swirling within them. Then shake my hand, you little slug. Double the pain, double the punishment, should you fail. But for now, it will be suspended. He hated this. He hated it so much. Oh God, why did he say that? But as his hand wrapped around yours, the gentle softness of your fur was unbelievably soothing. He didn't even feel his mouth anymore, or was scared of your eyes. However, the pain returned once he was no longer making contact with your fur, and yet he was still completely enchanted. Well, I shall be moving into the hotel then. Oh, really? Giddy Charlie jumped up, excited. Don't knock yourself out, sweetheart. I merely want to keep my signee in close proximity. Oh, well, I mean, we can certainly accommodate that. Can you at least participate in our activities? It was many hours later. With his bandaged up wrists, Sir Pentious was lying down in his bed. Egg minions scattered around in his room as they had already been asleep by the time he had come back. What a day, what a day. But he was thankful to Angel Dust for calling Charlie so quickly. But this deal, there was certainly some stress he didn't need. He rolled on his side, but at least he got out of it for now. However, just as he closed his eyes, an arm suddenly wrapped around his chest. All of his alarm bells rung, and he quickly rolled out of the embrace. Holding his blanket in front of his chest like a shield, as if he was unclothed, he hissed.
Who dares to enter my domain?
He shouted. But then his eyes met yours.
Ah!
He threw himself on his chest, burying his head under his pillow. Aren't you cute?
What do you want from me, demon?
On all fours, you slowly crawled over to him, until you're right next to him, whispering, making sure you don't run. He shivered, but then moved his head up, almost hitting you on the way.
What? Why? You know I won't. Why are you naked?
You grabbed him by his collar, pulling him closer to you. Not like you can see anything under all that fluff. Why? What's wrong? Scared of sleeping with someone else? His face turned red.
Why are you tormenting me like this?
Oh, I can't physically harm you. That was part of the deal. But mentally, I can do whatever I want. And besides, with your left still holding him by the rim of his PJs, you grabbed his hand with your right, pressing it into the fluff of your chest. His reaction was immediate. His long snake tongue lolled out of his mouth.
Oh God, so soft.
He couldn't deal with it. There was a secret that you didn't share, but you took great care of your pelt. Special oils you imported from the Ring of Lust using an imp delivery service were gently massaged every morning into it by your hands. You were proud of your excellent grooming, and it made getting contracts so much easier when your target was completely and utterly lost in the simple pleasure of petting you. His hand suddenly brushed against your sensitive chest, making you inhale sharply.
was that?
Nothing? Thankfully, your face was covered in fur and he didn't see your blush. In truth, the reason you had invaded his private space was because your room wasn't cleaned up yet. And regardless of that, you wanted to be with the snake as long and as often as possible. So you snuck inside while he was brushing his teeth an hour ago. And why not have a little fun with him before you, hopefully, got to gut him like a fish in a couple of weeks? The thought of his blood staining your immaculate fur was arousing. And you couldn't help it. You kissed the snake on the mouth. Only a mere peck. But he made a noise of absolute discomfort, like a child who stepped on a Lego.
Please leave.
I can't leave if you keep fondling my tits. His eyes wide in horror. He had been grabbing full handsful of them for a couple of minutes now.
Have I been doing that?
You nodded.
Sorry.
Keep going. I didn't say stop. You swung yourself on his thick body, pressing him down, and he gasped. Feeling your entire weight on his tail, feeling your fur envelop him. It was too much.
I can breathe. It's so good.
Something suddenly poked your behind. With a surprised expression, you looked back at yourself. Huh.
Oh, God, I'm so sorry. Please don't tell Charlie. She'll judge me forever.
Oh, you're completely misinterpreting my It was more a surprise. Because I didn't think the rumors were true that snake demons have 2 of these. Seductively, you smiled at him as you grabbed him. Let's take both of these for a test drive then, Sir Pentious. The knife gently moved through the barely cooked slab of meat like butter. In a single strain, no sinew, savory taste, and bloody. Meat of utmost quality. The demon slowly raised it to his mouth, his teeth dripping with salvia of anticipation. Slowly he slid the meat off using his tongue. It wrapped around it. He closed his eyes, savoring the taste, before beginning to chew. Next to him stood a very anxious hell-born imp, holding their food tablet before their chest like a shield. They waited patiently for the demon to swallow their bite, before quietly asking, "My lord, I hope the meat is to your liking?" Alastor opened his eyes, focused on his meal.
It has a very nostalgic taste.
He grinned widely, revealing his sharp teeth.
In fact, it makes me feel alive.
The imp gulped happily, but then the radio demon snapped his fingers. The imp nodded frantically, grabbing a bottle of wine from a cart, filling the radio demon's glass without wasting a single drop. Meanwhile, from the kitchen, the chef was frantically going over the list of his delivery contracts. Alastor had a very fine palate. He desired only the finest of tastes. The closer it was to what he lost after his death. the better, but he was prone to bursts of anger when the food wasn't to his liking. It was therefore customary in any cafe that catered to the tastes of what Alastor wanted to call the demons contracted for the meat delivery of the specific slab he was consuming, so that any ire could be directed at the source, to prevent the business from being destroyed. But as the little waiter rushed into the kitchen, all they said was, "He liked it." That still meant that the chef had to call the contractor, but the message would be more positive. "Oh, and he's asking to meet the producer." Now it was negative again. Damn it. When you got the call, you were in the middle of sewing skin. The demoness on your operating table groaned in pain, but her mouth had been sealed shut. Her screams had made your work sloppy at the start, though you still had high hopes for this one. Covered from head to toe in viscera, you made your way over to the ringing phone. Annoyed, you barked, "What?" On the other end was one of your minions, and as they spoke, your face turned white at the words you heard. "Radio demon," you muttered. "Green alarm, now," you shouted into the phone. You had multiple alarms set up. Red for when a gang got a little too bold and dared to attack your operation. Yellow for if one of your babies escaped. Black alarm for when there were precisely 24 hours before the next annual Purge. White for any accidents, such as fire. And green. The green alarm was only used when someone you didn't want to upset was about to enter your turf. Your name was Delilah. You were a sinner demon, sent to hell for your crimes. And you were the owner of a business that was considered morally wrong even for hell itself. You had way too many deals going on with way too many deal makers to make everything possible. And it was all thanks to your diligent work that everything was running smoothly. Though someone as powerful as the radio demon Alastor, well, that suddenly made every contract you had seem null and void. No one would dare to stand against him. After ordering a lesser demon to take care of your little experiment, you rushed to your office/bedroom. Yes, someone as busy as you couldn't afford to sleep somewhere other than their job. You slept on a mattress hidden behind your desk. Quickly you jumped under your shower to wash the blood and gore off, before putting on a suit. The radio demon was known for his lack of sex drive, so you chose a more modest outfit. It wasn't 2 sizes too small to make your curves seem more luscious than they were, and you buttoned it up completely, to look more professional. With a racing heart, you then waited, hands folded on your desk, waiting. Alastor stepped out of a beautiful limousine. He didn't feel like teleporting. Someone who delivered such fine meat deserved some preparation. Yes, he wasn't here to punish you for a terrible job, no. He wanted to personally see your operation, to see how you managed to create meat that tasted so human. With mild disgust, he stared at the nightclub he had been told to visit. It was the middle of the day and it was closed, yet still such a shabby establishment was beneath him. He stepped towards the bouncer demon who was reading a dirty magazine.
Oh, angel dust. Someday.
Muttered the greasy demon as he read. Alastor cleared his throat, making the bouncer look up from his mag. Immediately he squealed like a pig.
Sire,
He threw himself on the ground.
I apologize.
Open the door, please.
He spoke slowly like he was speaking to a toddler.
Yes, sir.
Immediately Bouncer opened the door with a key, letting the radio demon inside. As shabby as the club looked from the outside, it was a little better on the inside. Its floors were shiny and not sticky. The decoration kept in an 80s neon style, and the boys and girls who danced here had the modesty to put on jackets upon spotting him. As he entered the main room with dance floor and pole dancing stage, he was approached by the club's owner, and your second-hand man. A fat, yet muscular wrath demon. Hellborn.
Sir,
He grunted, as he bowed deeply before Alastor.
Delilah's expecting you.
Upon hearing that, a few of the dancers gulped loud enough for the radio demon to hear. A few started whispering, one even fainted. Without saying a word, Alastor followed the demon downstairs, past the changing rooms, through 2 metal doors with the text "Staff Only" and "Seriously, Staff Only" written on them. Alastor then found himself on a metal catwalk. A blood-covered yet sterile-smelling butchering floor beneath him. All the workers here were imps. They had stopped working. They just stood there, presentable. Some even saluted. After Alastor was led down a hallway, finally he stood before a door with the word "Office" written on it. The club owner excused himself before leaving, and with a scoff, Alastor knocked on the door using his staff. And your frightened voice answered. Alastor was tall, taller than you. His eyes glowed in an intimidating red. An aura of pure authority was wafting around him like an invisible mist.
Greetings, my darling. Are you the butcher who delivered this excellent meat to the Cannibal Cafe on North Street?
You inhaled through your mouth before saying, "Yes." He clapped his hands.
Wonderful, my darling. I'm here for a tour of your facility.
Tour?
Did I stutter?
No, of course not, sir. You stood up so quickly you almost threw over your chair. With quivering lips, you left your office, radio demon closely behind you.
I must say, I'm impressed. You're exactly the kind of demon I expected to run an establishment such as this. Though you don't appear like one who'd be happy in this filth.
You were a homunculus demon. Likely one of the prettier ones. Usually, souls like yours were punished for an excessive obsession, considered sacrilege, their bodies representing the utmost extreme of it. In your case, despite your beautiful features, your body was littered with patchwork skin, as if someone had taken the corpse of a most beautiful woman on earth and used parts of others to improve on the perfection. Normally, someone with your looks would be lying 24/7 under an overlord, naked and sweating, while being given gifts of gratitude for the fun times. You forced a smile. Well, sir... Alastor smiled back. A cold shiver ran down your spine, and you stopped talking. The both of you descended a flight of stairs into the processing section, before you continued. As you know, sir, normally, Cannibal Cafe meat is produced by gangsters who want to get rid of a couple of bodies, leading to the meat often being stringy, or tasting like soot. You stopped next to a conveyor belt on which, in neatly cut slabs of meat in the exact same shape his meal had been, were moving to a packaging machine. Alastor could feel salvia building up behind his teeth. Our meat is as fresh as it can be. Scales, demonstrate. A small black imp ran towards you. He was dressed in a white apron and had his hands covered by rubber gloves. Even his sharp claws had been cut as to not penetrate the tender protection. Present the meat to our guest, please. For a second he hesitated, but then he grabbed one of the meat slabs. He took 2 steps closer to Alastor, then squeezed it. The radio demon inhaled sharply as he watched how the muscles of the meat spasmed as if thousands of tiny bugs were moving underneath. Alastor's mouth twitched. This was the perfect sign of freshness. The imp then placed the meat bag on the conveyor before bowing and leaving. Alastor made a slurping noise as he gulped down his spittle.
I see your freshness, darling, but I'm more interested in how you get meat of this quality.
Depends on how much time you're willing to invest, sir.
I'm a man who has many things to do. This is an unscheduled visit, so please, don't waste my time.
You exhaled. You closed your eyes for a second and a half, too long, as you breathed to calm your nerves. In that case, sir, we shall descend. Calmly, the radio demon nodded. Skipping the stairs, you entered an elevator to the lowest floor of the facility. Alastor was mildly disappointed that there was no elevator music. And when the doors opened, the radio demon's mouth dropped for less than a second in utter surprise, yet quickly it returned to his regular grin. He was disgusted and yet aroused. Countless female demons were tied up to heavy machinery, their mouths covered by feeding tubes that had seemingly fused with their flesh, but the physique was what was most fascinating and corrupted about them. Their bellies were inflated, so much they almost burst, to the point that their veins were visible and pulsating, stretched further than they should technically be possible to. Stitches, yes, they had more skin than they should have. They were lying on their backs in small cubicles, neatly separated by walkways on which imps with cattle prods were patrolling. They bowed before you and Alastor as you walked past them.
I have never seen these kinds of demons,
he said, surprised as well as impressed.
They seem as they have been created just for whatever you're doing here with them, my dear. But that's physically impossible.
Proudly you smiled as you continued your tour. Well, this is the ultimate secret, my dear Alastor. This is where the meat comes from. I call them living incubators. You entered another office, this one having medical tools and less decoration than your main one. You sat down behind a desk, though Alastor preferred to stand.
I am dying of curiosity. I want to know everything about you, darling. What is happening out there might be one of the most beautiful things that my eyes have ever witnessed.
You inhaled sharply, knowing full well that this was a rare honor. You smiled. My name is Delilah. I'm the owner of the biggest meat production facility in the Nine Circles. I primarily produce demon meat, specifically to cater to any palate, though my primary customers are cannibals. So I try to make the meat taste as close to the real thing as possible.
Are you a cannibal too, my dear?
You shook your head, and Alastor raised a brow in surprise. How could that be? I have never tasted human meat, you admitted. But I was always fascinated by it. The human body, I mean, it's beautiful, yet grotesque. The thought of organs, for instance. You muttered, and intentionally your right hand rubbed over your stomach. Just thinking about it. Pulsating, wiggling, doing the things they're meant to do. Warm, beautiful organs, resistant yet so fragile. Delicate, yet so revolting. We shit, we piss, we develop zits, our bodies gurgle and grumble, produce pus and sweat. Oh, how I hate sweat. Yet, it's so beautiful. You see, as a human, I was a war surgeon during what would later be called World War I. I amputated many limbs, and I saw death daily. I watched as 3 men I considered friends were turned into clouds of viscera by an artillery shell from the Germans. And yet, I was never shell-shocked. I was in love. I was in love with the chaos and my job. Every day, cutting through bodies, trying to save lives, I became addicted to the art. But there was always this curiosity. I wanted to bend flesh to my will. Human biology becoming my obsession. You exhaled. Your heart was pounding. You're feeling excited as memories of your life as a human flooded back. And with a finger you traced one of the many seams of your skin. There's no greater feeling than being covered in guts, knowing that what is sticking to your hands is the essence of a person. What they really are. In all their glory and pus-covered shame. As Alastor listened to your speech, he himself leaned forward on his microphone cane. He was listening to every word you spoke, like you were preaching to him. And yes, your words resonated with the radio demon. Of course, my obsession didn't end when I eventually succumbed to the allure of mustard gas. Awakening here in this body of mine was as fascinating as it was terrifying. You held up your right hand. This body is so easily customized. It's heaven. You flicked your wrist, and out of your fingers shot a scalpel, like the claw of a cat. And I couldn't wait to cut open as many demons as I could. I want to learn how they tick. I want to see what their insides look like. You blinked and smiled wider than the radio demon. But enough about me. You're more interested in our product, aren't you? Well, it's a simple technique. I sew more skin to a sinner demoness, if she wants to or not. Then I modify their wombs using chemicals developed by a few demons I have contracts with. You see, we sinners, we can't have children, minus a few exceptions. In hell, we are neutered. And hellborn demons, they don't taste right. They taste like sulfur and mud. But hellborns can have children. So what we do here is we take newborn imps from a hellborn demon and shove them into one of my living incubators. Thanks to the mutated insides, the child gets absorbed. It gets unbirthed. And a new one grows. And when that one is fully grown, it gets turned into our product. By fully grown, of course, I mean to an adult size. That's why we need so much skin. A broad smile appeared on your lips. My meat is so tender, so fresh, so expensive. Most upper-ring demons don't dare to intervene with my operation. The ones who try get cut down quickly by the demons whose contracts I have. Just so they could taste more product. Something inside Alastor had changed the more you spoke. Though the man was open with his disdain for love and romance, you managed to awaken this feeling deep within his blackened soul. Mostly because his brain was confused. It made a connection with you and the meat he had tasted. And the feeling he got. The meat that had been so perfect, he had felt alive again, ready to go on a hunt and kill and eat, consume. And so, right this moment, he felt something that was almost love, but also definitely was an obsession.
Darling,
He said after a long silence between the two of you.
Forget all the contracts you have.
Snipping his fingers, a long contract appeared before you.
With this, they're all null and void, and if anyone says something against it, they can answer to me.
A hint of nervousness was felt at the back of your skull.
I normally don't make contracts where the person signing gets a better deal than me, but I'll make an exception.
There was excitement in his voice, and an almost giddy smile on his lips as you read.
I'll even go the extra way and offer you a room in a business that I have recently invested into. A little hotel. I'm sure you will like it.
Alastor felt pride as your eyes became wider and wider as you continued reading. But then you placed it down. Curiously, you raised your eyebrows. What about clause 856? He chuckled. He liked it when people could read fast. Wasted less time.
What about it, my dear?
A blush almost appeared on your cold face. With what's written here, what I'm required to do with you, are you interested in me?
Maybe.
With the exception of this rather lewd clause, everything else listed were things you were already getting from other dealmakers. It would simplify everything if you signed this, because you'd only have to answer to one boss. With a shaking hand, you took a pen. And the others? You asked curiously. Grinning evilly, Alastor didn't reply. Well, I better not upset him. This was just how business worked in hell. You couldn't help but smile as you signed the deal. And a familiar pain rushed through your body, the pain every demon felt upon agreeing to a contract. Alastor made the paper disappear. And after a flick of his wrist, you and him were in your main office. Confused, you looked around.
You have made me feel excited, darling. In my entire life and unlife, almost no one managed to do that.
He stepped closer to you, grabbing you by your chin.
I simply have to taste you.
Your widened eyes stared into his.
Give yourself to me.
You could feel his claws scrape against your cheeks as he held you. Slowly, exhaling through your nostrils, you dropped your guard, which Alastor saw as your sign of surrender. Moving his hands to your shoulders, they dug into your flesh. He leaned forward, forcing his lips on yours. Alastor was a greedy, hungry kisser. The radio demon was putting all his weight into it. His tongue showed no mercy, breaching your lips almost immediately. Every movement, every little pulse you did was punished by him mercilessly pushing you down. Your eyes rolled back. You were incapable of taking his pleasure. Alastor, despite his disdain for the art of sensuality, still understood how to press the right buttons. And soon you'd be a heaving, blabbering mess, sweating and grunting like a sow on your mattress after he was done with you. The knife gently moved through the barely cooked slab of meat like butter. In a single strain, no sinew, savory taste, and bloody. Meat of utmost quality. The demon slowly raised it to his mouth, his teeth dripping with salvia of anticipation. Slowly slid the meat off using his tongue. It wrapped around it. He closed his eyes, savoring the taste, before beginning to chew. Next to him stood a very anxious hell-born imp, holding their food tablet before their chest like a shield. They waited patiently for the demon to swallow their bite, before quietly asking, "My lord, I hope the meat is to your liking?" Alastor opened his eyes, focused on his meal.
It has a very nostalgic taste.
He grinned widely, revealing his sharp teeth.
In fact, it makes me feel alive.
The imp gulped happily, but then the radio demon snapped his fingers. The imp nodded frantically, grabbing a bottle of wine from a cart, filling the radio demon's glass without wasting a single drop. Meanwhile, from the kitchen, the chef was frantically going over the list of his delivery contracts. Alastor had a very fine palate. He desired only the finest of tastes. The closer it was to what he lost after his death, the better, but he was prone to bursts of anger when the food wasn't to his liking. It was therefore customary in any cafe that catered to the tastes of what Alastor wanted to call the demons contracted for the meat delivery of the specific slab he was consuming, so that any ire could be directed at the source, to prevent the business from being destroyed. But as the little waiter rushed into the kitchen, all they said was, "He liked it." That still meant that the chef had to call the contractor, but the message would be more positive. "Oh, and he's asking to meet the producer." Now it was negative again. Damn it. When you got the call, you were in the middle of sewing skin. The demoness on your operating table groaned in pain, but her mouth had been sealed shut. Her screams had made your work sloppy at the start, though you still had high hopes for this one. Covered from head to toe in viscera, you made your way over to the ringing phone. Annoyed, you barked, "What?" On the other end was one of your minions, and as they spoke, your face turned white at the words you heard. "Radio demon," you muttered. "Green alarm, now," you shouted into the phone. You had multiple alarms set up. Red for when a gang got a little too bold and dared to attack your operation. Yellow for if one of your babies escaped. Black alarm for when there were precisely 24 hours before the next annual Purge. White for any accidents, such as fire. And green. The green alarm was only used when someone you didn't want to upset was about to enter your turf. Your name was Delilah. You were a sinner demon, sent to hell for your crimes. And you were the owner of a business that was considered morally wrong even for hell itself. You had way too many deals going on with way too many deal makers to make everything possible. And it was all thanks to your diligent work that everything was running smoothly. Though someone as powerful as the radio demon Alastor, well, that suddenly made every contract you had seem null and void. No one would dare to stand against him. After ordering a lesser demon to take care of your little experiment, you rushed to your office/bedroom. Yes, someone as busy as you couldn't afford to sleep somewhere other than their job. You slept on a mattress hidden behind your desk. Quickly you jumped under your shower to wash the blood and gore off, before putting on a suit. The radio demon was known for his lack of sex drive, so you chose a more modest outfit. It wasn't 2 sizes too small to make your curves seem more luscious than they were, and you buttoned it up completely, to look more professional. With a racing heart, you then waited, hands folded on your desk, waiting. Alastor stepped out of a beautiful limousine. He didn't feel like teleporting. Someone who delivered such fine meat deserved some preparation. Yes, he wasn't here to punish you for a terrible job, no. He wanted to personally see your operation, to see how you managed to create meat that tasted so human. With mild disgust, he stared at the nightclub he had been told to visit. It was the middle of the day and it was closed, yet still such a shabby establishment was beneath him. He stepped towards the bouncer demon who was reading a dirty magazine.
Oh, angel dust. Someday.
Muttered the greasy demon as he read. Alastor cleared his throat, making the bouncer look up from his mag. Immediately he squealed like a pig.
Sire,
He threw himself on the ground.
I apologize.
Open the door. Please.
He spoke slowly like he was speaking to a toddler.
Yes, sir.
Immediately, Bouncer opened the door with a key, letting the radio demon inside. As shabby as the club looked from the outside, it was a little better on the inside. Its floors were shiny and not sticky. The decoration kept in an 80s neon style, and the boys and girls who danced here had the modesty to put on jackets upon spotting him. As he entered the main room with dance floor and pole dancing stage, he was approached by the club's owner and your second-hand man, a fat yet muscular wrath demon, Hellborn.
Sir?
He grunted as he bowed deeply before Alastor.
Delilah's expecting you.
Upon hearing that, a few of the dancers gulped loud enough for the radio demon to hear. A few started whispering, one even fainted. Without saying a word, Alastor followed the demon downstairs, past the changing rooms, through 2 metal doors with the text "Staff Only" and "Seriously, Staff Only" written on them. Alastor then found himself on a metal catwalk. A blood-covered yet sterile-smelling butchering floor beneath him. All the workers here were imps. They had stopped working. They just stood there, presentable. Some even saluted. After Alastor was led down a hallway, finally he stood before a door with the word "Office" written on it. The club owner excused himself before leaving, and with a scoff, Alastor knocked on the door using his staff. And your frightened voice answered. Alastor was tall, taller than you. His eyes glowed in an intimidating red. An aura of pure authority was wafting around him like an invisible mist.
Greetings, my darling. Are you the butcher who delivered this excellent meat to the Cannibal Cafe on North Street?
You inhaled through your mouth before saying, "Yes." He clapped his hands.
Wonderful, my darling. I'm here for a tour of your facility.
Tour?
Did I stutter?
No, of course not, sir. You stood up so quickly you almost threw over your chair. With quivering lips, you left your office, radio demon closely behind you.
I must say, I'm impressed. You're exactly the kind of demon I expected to run an establishment such as this. Though you don't appear like one who'd be happy in this filth.
You were a homunculus demon. Likely one of the prettier ones. Usually, souls like yours were punished for an excessive obsession, considered sacrilege, their bodies representing the utmost extreme of it. In your case, despite your beautiful features, your body was littered with patchwork skin, as if someone had taken the corpse of a most beautiful woman on earth and used parts of others to improve on the perfection. Normally, someone with your looks would be lying 24/7 under an overlord, naked and sweating, while being given gifts of gratitude for the fun times. You forced a smile. Well, sir... Alastor smiled back. A cold shiver ran down your spine, and you stopped talking. The both of you descended a flight of stairs into the processing section, before you continued. As you know, sir, normally, Cannibal Cafe meat is produced by gangsters who want to get rid of a couple of bodies, leading to the meat often being stringy, or tasting like soot. You stopped next to a conveyor belt on which, in neatly cut slabs of meat in the exact same shape his meal had been, were moving to a packaging machine. Alastor could feel salvia building up behind his teeth. Our meat is as fresh as it can be. Scales, demonstrate. A small black imp ran towards you. He was dressed in a white apron and had his hands covered by rubber gloves. Even his sharp claws had been cut as to not penetrate the tender protection. Present the meat to our guest, please. For a second he hesitated, but then he grabbed one of the meat slabs. He took 2 steps closer to Alastor, then squeezed it. The radio demon inhaled sharply as he watched how the muscles of the meat spasmed as if thousands of tiny bugs were moving underneath. Alastor's mouth twitched. This was the perfect sign of freshness. The imp then placed the meat bag on the conveyor before bowing and leaving. Alastor made a slurping noise as he gulped down his spittle.
I see your freshness, darling, but I'm more interested in how you get meat of this quality.
Depends on how much time you're willing to invest, sir.
I'm a man who has many things to do. This is an unscheduled visit, so please, don't waste my time.
You exhaled. You closed your eyes for a second and a half, too long, as you breathed to calm your nerves. In that case, sir, we shall descend. Calmly, the radio demon nodded. Skipping the stairs, you entered an elevator to the lowest floor of the facility. Alastor was mildly disappointed that there was no elevator music. And when the doors opened, the radio demon's mouth dropped for less than a second in utter surprise, yet quickly it returned to his regular grin. He was disgusted and yet aroused. Countless female demons were tied up to heavy machinery, their mouths covered by feeding tubes that had seemingly fused with their flesh, but the physique was what was most fascinating and corrupted about them. Their bellies were inflated, so much they almost burst, to the point that their veins were visible and pulsating, stretched further than they should technically be possible to. Stitches, yes, they had more skin than they should have. They were lying on their backs in small cubicles, neatly separated by walkways on which imps with cattle prods were patrolling. They bowed before you and Alastor as you walked past them.
I have never seen these kinds of demons,
he said, surprised as well as impressed.
They seem as they have been created just for whatever you're doing here with them, my dear. But that's physically impossible.
Proudly you smiled as you continued your tour. Well, this is the ultimate secret, my dear Alastor. This is where the meat comes from. I call them living incubators. You entered another office, this one having medical tools and less decoration than your main one. You sat down behind a desk, though Alastor preferred to stand.
I am dying of curiosity. I want to know everything about you, darling. What is happening out there might be one of the most beautiful things that my eyes have ever witnessed.
You inhaled sharply, knowing full well that this was a rare honor. You smiled. My name is Delilah. I'm the owner of the biggest meat production facility in the 9 Circles. I primarily produce demon meat, specifically to cater to any palate, though my primary customers are cannibals. So I try to make the meat taste as close to the real thing as possible.
Are you a cannibal too, my dear?
You shook your head, and Alastor raised a brow in surprise. How could that be? I have never tasted human meat, you admitted. But I was always fascinated by it. The human body, I mean, it's beautiful, yet grotesque. The thought of organs, for instance. You muttered, and intentionally your right hand rubbed over your stomach. Just thinking about it. Pulsating, wiggling, doing the things they're meant to do. Warm, beautiful organs, resistant yet so fragile. Delicate, yet so revolting. We shit, we piss, we develop zits, our bodies gurgle and grumble, produce pus and sweat. Oh, how I hate sweat. Yet, it's so beautiful. You see, as a human, I was a war surgeon, during what would later be called World War I. I amputated many limbs, and I saw death daily. I watched as 3 men I considered friends were turned into clouds of viscera by an artillery shell from the Germans. And yet, I was never shell-shocked. I was in love. I was in love with the chaos and my job. Every day, cutting through bodies, trying to save lives, I became addicted to the art. But there was always this curiosity. I wanted to bend flesh to my will. Human biology becoming my obsession. You exhaled. Your heart was pounding. You're feeling excited as memories of your life as a human flooded back. And with a finger you traced one of the many seams of your skin. There's no greater feeling than being covered in guts, knowing that what is sticking to your hands is the essence of a person. What they really are. In all their glory and pus-covered shame. As Alastor listened to your speech, he himself leaned forward on his microphone cane. He was listening to every word you spoke, like you were preaching to him. And yes, your words resonated with the radio demon. Of course, my obsession didn't end when I eventually succumbed to the allure of mustard gas. Awakening here in this body of mine was as fascinating as it was terrifying. You held up your right hand. This body is so easily customized. It's heaven. You flicked your wrist, and out of your fingers shot a scalpel, like the claw of a cat. And I couldn't wait to cut open as many demons as I could. I want to learn how they tick. I want to see what their insides look like. You blinked and smiled wider than the radio demon. But enough about me. You're more interested in our product, aren't you? Well, it's a simple technique. I sew more skin to a sinner demoness, if she wants to or not. Then I modify their wombs using chemicals developed by a few demons I have contracts with. You see, we sinners we can't have children, minus a few exceptions. In hell, we are neutered. And hellborn demons, they don't taste right. They taste like sulfur and mud. But hellborns can have children. So what we do here is we take newborn imps from a hellborn demon and shove them into one of my living incubators. Thanks to the mutated insides, the child gets absorbed. It gets unbirthed. And a new one grows. And when that one is fully grown, it gets turned into our product. By fully grown, of course, I mean to an adult size. That's why we need so much skin. A broad smile appeared on your lips. My meat is so tender, so fresh, so expensive. Most upper rank demons don't dare to intervene with my operation. The ones who try get cut down quickly by the demons whose contracts I have. Just so they could taste more product. Something inside Alastor had changed the more you spoke. Though the man was open with his disdain for love and romance, you managed to awaken this feeling deep within his blackened soul. Mostly because his brain was confused. It made a connection with you and the meat he had tasted. And the feeling he got. The meat that had been so perfect, he had felt alive again, ready to go on a hunt and kill and eat, consume. And so, right this moment, he felt something that was almost love, but also definitely was an obsession.
Darling,
He said after a long silence between the two of you.
Forget all the contracts you have.
Snipping his fingers, a long contract appeared before you.
With this, they're all null and void, and if anyone says something against it, they can answer to me.
A hint of nervousness was felt at the back of your skull.
I normally don't make contracts where the person signing gets a better deal than me, but I'll make an exception.
There was excitement in his voice, and an almost giddy smile on his lips as you read.
I'll even go the extra way and offer you a room in a business that I have recently invested into. A little hotel. I'm sure you will like it.
Alastor felt pride as your eyes became wider and wider as you continued reading. But then you placed it down. Curiously, you raised your eyebrows. What about clause 856? He chuckled. He liked it when people could read fast. Wasted less time.
What about it, my dear?
A blush almost appeared on your cold face. With what's written here, what I'm required to do with you, are you interested in me?
Maybe.
With the exception of this rather lewd clause, everything else listed were things you were already getting from other dealmakers. It would simplify everything if you signed this, because you'd only have to answer to one boss. With a shaking hand, you took a pen. And the others? You asked curiously. Grinning evilly, Alastor didn't reply. Well, I better not upset him. This was just how business worked in hell. You couldn't help but smile as you signed the deal. And a familiar pain rushed through your body, the pain every demon felt upon agreeing to a contract. Alastor made the paper disappear, and after a flick of his wrist, you and him were in your main office. Confused, you looked around.
You have made me feel excited, darling. In my entire life and unlife, almost no one managed to do that.
He stepped closer to you, grabbing you by your chin.
I simply have to taste you.
Your widened eyes stared into his.
Give yourself to me.
You could feel his claws scrape against your cheeks as he held you. Slowly, exhaling through your nostrils, you dropped your guard, which Alastor saw as your sign of surrender. Moving his hands to your shoulders, they dug into your flesh. He leaned forward, forcing his lips on yours. Alastor was a greedy, hungry kisser. The radio demon was putting all his weight into it. His tongue showed no mercy, breaching your lips almost immediately. Every movement, every little pulse you did was punished by him mercilessly pushing you down. Your eyes rolled back. You were incapable of taking his pleasure. Alastor, despite his disdain for the art of sensuality, still understood how to press the right buttons. And soon you'd be a heaving, blabbering mess, sweating and grunting like a sow on your mattress after he was done with you. Purges. A yearly tradition in which angels of the exorcist branch would descend from the heavens, led by Adam, humanity's first spear, to slaughter the encroaching demon horde to prevent the potential of an uprising. It was something the dwellers of hell only reluctantly accepted, mostly driven by their own bloodlust, hoping to gain one or two of the left-behind celestial weapons. Weapons so powerful they could permanently kill the soul and remove them entirely from the afterlife cycle of death and rebirth. Of course, this was a very romanticized description of it all. What was essentially a culling of people who already passed away and had been sent to the worst place possible. An ill wind had been blowing through hell's streets. You could tell this purge was going to be terrible. With your group of loyal, technically boyfriends around you, you had felt quite safe. You were a well-liked breed of sinner-born lust demons called vixens, with 3 X's. A subspecies of fox demons. You had a voluptuous womanly body, with unbelievably silky smooth red fur. In fact, the white tip of your bushy red tail was so soft, it caused an instant orgasm in lesser-trained males. It was fun accidentally brushing against random guys on the street. The ones who turned into blubbering messes sometimes even got a little kiss from you for entertaining you so much. You had piercing green eyes that glowed in a dangerous red whenever you got mad. You were fierce and motherly at the same time. Or, as one of your boyfriends had put it, the hottest big sister he never had. There was, however, one rule among your little harem. Never meet one of your boyfriends while on a date with one of the others, as that usually led to needless bloodshed. Even though they were as mutually understanding due to your nature as a lust demon as they could be. You had far stronger needs and desires than any other. But no amount of boyfriends was keeping you safe tonight. As an exception, you had gathered them all around you in an abandoned building, safety in numbers and all. And you promised everyone who survived would get 24 hours with you, order taken by how safe they had made you feel. The Purges themselves lasted roughly 24 hours, and they were very strict about that. An angel could be right before you, and if the clock hit 12, they would just sigh and leave. Maybe give you a hate-filled look, but that's that. After you had a little party that quite literally exploded by the angels, your survival was top priority to your boyfriends. But one by one, the numbers dwindled over the bloodshed-filled night, leaving you alone, chased by one of the exorcists. Her cackling had haunted you for a while, and eventually, you had been cornered. The angel had her spear raised, her mask turned into a grotesque smile. Shivering, you revealed your own weapon, a machete, old yet sharp. Your preferred tool to enact punishment, and a trash can lid as a shield. The angel's head tilted, raising a brow. She didn't taunt you, seemingly admiring your bravery or foolishness, though in reality she was suppressing a laugh. That even now, out of breath, chased for hours through the streets, you'd still try and fight with mere scrap metal? But you surprised the angel. You clumsily dodged her attacks, making it almost look easy, and she felt insulted. Of course, with the spear she had the reach advantage, but a lucky parry with the trash can lid left her open for a counterattack. Quickly you swiped. Just barely your blade cut into the angel's right wing, making her flinch. Golden blood spraying on the ground. The angel hissed.
How dare you, you slut!
She charged forward, so enraged that even you could call it a blind attack. Easily you sidestepped her, slashing her back, making her drop her weapon in pain.
Ah!
She went down on her knees, shaking. A hubris that made her weak. But just as you got ready to stab her, she dodge rolled like a video game character. Hungry salvia flowing out of her mouth. So violently angry. She had trained for decades, fought for decades. This wasn't even her first purge. How careless she had gotten. This was the first time someone wounded her. She made another attempt at poking you with the celestial weapon, when a male voice called out, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what in the hell is going on here?" Your eyes widened. A male angel had descended. He gave you a venomous look before gently patting the exorcist. "Come on, can't let a nice piece of ass like you go to waste. Go to Hart for some bandages, okay? I'll deal with this one."
Okay, sir.
She groaned. And he made finger guns. "Later tonight I kiss those boo-boos away. Got it?" The angel blushed pleased.
Yes, sir. Of course, sir. Thank you, sir.
With a big blush, the angel jumped up, flying away. "All right, now." The man turned around with a shit-eating grin. "You actually managed to hurt one of us." He looked you up and down. Shame that you're a demon. You'd be a good angel, especially with a kick-ass body like that. You were unsure as to how to react to that. I tell you what, sweet tits. I'll make you my last kill for the Purge. Your death is gonna save countless other demons. How does that sound? Sound nice? Good. From beneath his robe, he pulled out 2 golden swords. So at least squeal for me, alright? Pretty sure you know how to do that. He didn't give you a second to prepare. He immediately charged you, swinging both swords with such ferocity and ease, like they were just simply long feathers. Your body pumping both adrenaline and endorphins at a rate similar to a lovey-dovey orgy with 5 guys, you're able to dodge his attacks. His blades only able to cut off a few strands of your fur. After a feint attack of his that you couldn't predict, he managed to stab you in the left shoulder. The pain was blindingly powerful. Your black blood spraying out of the wound. Hissing in pain, your fingers let go of the trash can lit shield. As they were now uncontrollably twitching, the wound burned like acid was being pushed in there. By the way, did I forget to mention? Wounds caused by our weapons never fully heal. It's like an STD. You got it for life, babe. The angel taunted, and you smirked. Good thing down here, STDs aren't a problem. You swung, taking the angel by surprise. He really thought he had you now. Of course, you just barely grazed one of his feathers, but you were still impressed. It was then, from somewhere above the 2 of you, a shout came. Master, do you require assistance? For a moment, less than a second, he considered. I solo this one. She's giving me a great workout. Go, Loot, I can do this alone. After the angel left, he grinned at you. Man, I can't wait to fuck you up good. He made a spin attack that came so fast that once again you barely dodged it. It took you a moment, but you felt something hot run down your right cheek. A small chunk of bloody red fur on the ground, indicating he just cut off one of your ears. This? I fucking love this. Ugh. Was there ever a guy that enjoyed his job more than me? Right after he said that, the pain on your right exploded, like in a bad anime. You winced and went down on your knees, screaming. It hurt so much. It felt like someone was holding your ear under the flame of a lighter, even though the thing had been severed. But deep down, your screams no longer were from pain. It was to induce your demonic transformation. As the rage-filled cries reached the angel's ear, he moved his slender fingers like a conductor of your suffering. But, like most demons, you could call upon this more powerful form. Normally these didn't last long, and only overlords with a lot of soul contracts could maintain it for as long as they desired. But this was no longer about survival for you. You didn't care if after this you were so exhausted you passed out and an angel just took free pickings. You just wanted this loudmouth to be stuffed. Your fur blackened as your appearance became less fox and more wolf-like. Thick, sharp black claws bursting out of your fingertips, dripping with sizzling hot blood. A second row of teeth burst out of your gums, and your eyes set ablaze. And yet, the angel wasn't intimidated. No, he used this opportunity to cheer. Oh my god, second face. You didn't tell me you have a second face! Holy shit, I'm pitching a tent here. I love this kind of stuff. Howling, you rushed the angel. His moves, now that your body was pumping more blood, more adrenaline, more endorphins, more rage, they seemed slowed. Yet still your brutal swipes just barely missed their mark. But one thing was for sure. He was getting out of breath. Your aggression had tripled. He was now more on the defense than the offense, and he hated that. He hated you wouldn't back down. He hated having to defend himself. He hated that you weren't even an overlord. He hated that he was getting kinda turned on by this. And by you. And as those thoughts waltzed through his brain like a road roller, he felt a sudden resistance and a sharp pain in his arm. A pain he hasn't felt since God himself tore out one of his ribs to create the first human woman. The tip of one of your claws just barely managed to penetrate the skin of his left wrist during another devastatingly powerful swipe attack. A thin line of golden blood pushed out of the wound. It was nothing more than a mere paper cut. The angel's left eye twitched. Hundreds of thoughts going on in his brain at once, as he calculated the situation. Which was fortunate for you, as you failed to notice that right after this moment, your attacks lost almost all their momentum. You had put everything into that swipe. You were going for the kill. And yet you only managed to just barely graze the angel. As if the entire battle had played in slow motion, it now returned to regular speed. And you unceremoniously landed face first in the mud, body rapidly turning back into its regular form. Your breaths came shallow and uneven. Meanwhile, the angel sheathed his swords, holding up his wounded hand to inspect it in the light. And to his shame, a single drop of blood was shed. With a neutral expression, he placed a foot on your back. In moments like this, usually rain starts falling. What a shithole you live in. Can't even do a dramatic effect to save its life. He spit on the ground next to you. His voice had changed. No longer mocking. He was deadly serious now. Though, he had been taking this serious from the very beginning. He just hid it very well. To piss you off. To take you off guard. And maybe it was a sort of coping mechanism as well. Listen careful, sugar tits, he said, into the bloody hole where your ear had been. All sounds, all sensations felt so raw through the ear hole now. It was so unimaginably painful. He placed something in your hand. Your thumb grazed over it. Paper, you thought. My business card. You have 5 seconds to read it. 1, 2, 3. You pulled the card up to your face, your entire body aching. It read, Adam, first spear on Earth, has chosen you as a fuck buddy. Your tail twitched angrily. Call the number below for a good time. You growled unintentionally. In 20 minutes the purge will be over, sugar tits. And during these 20 minutes, I will be calling for 20 angels. He chuckled. Survive these 20 minutes and maybe we smash. You earned a good dicking after this display. Growling, you got on all fours, almost throwing him off of you. Licking your furry, sharp teeth, you glared at him. Are you even realizing what you're asking? Me? A vixen of hell? I'm going to ruin that prank of yours. You'll never want to even look at one of your precious angel pussies anymore after I ran through you. He flashed his teeth in an angry, toothy grin. Well, make me. He snapped his right hand and was instantly gone, replaced by a small army of 20 angels, all looking surprised at the sudden teleportation. A surprise you took to your advantage to run. Run faster than you had ever run. Hurt, bleeding, exhausted. The howling, hissing, cackling angels right behind you. One of them, with a heart filled with rage and pride, threw a spear. It grazed your hip. Blood spewing out of the wound. In full panic, you grabbed the heavy lid of a sewer pipe, threw it off, and jumped down into the murky, stinky grime as a last resort. Closing your eyes, holding your mouth and nose shut, you remained there. A noise from above indicating that the angels moved past you. They didn't realize you immediately jumped into the sewage. They actually thought you were running on the side. Oh God. You won! You didn't know how long you remained there, though. But eventually, the disgust was so big you had to surface. Shivering, covered in stinking goo, you climbed out of the same hole you had jumped through minutes ago. Each step you took releasing a squelch. Defeated, you fell on all fours and vomited. Hey. Using your left claw, you swiped away some of your hairs, only to look at the white boot of an exorcist. But she wasn't holding a spear anymore, and yet her eyes were narrowed with pure hatred. Just then the tower clock rang, indicating the end of the purge. The angel didn't extend a hand to help you stand. She just looked down on you. Don't think just because he invited you to fuck means you are special in any way. The silence between the two of you could be cut with a knife. Puffing up your cheeks, you swiped some brown globs off of your head at the angel. She didn't react at you dirtying her boots and a bit of her legwear. What? Jealous? That Daddy wants to try something else? Your holiness? Scared he will like it more than you? She kicked you right in the face. I'm just telling you the truth, you pompous bitch. She slammed her boot into your neck, forcing your face into your own vomit. Eat shit and die. It was 3 days later. You had spent the day after the purge under the shower in a fetal position, watching your black blood from your still open wounds whirl into the drain. Your entire body was in pain. You had found shelter in one of your now former boyfriend's apartments, licking your wounds. Your hips, shoulders, and right side of your face bandaged up. As expected, the wounds closed incredibly slowly, and your ear showed no sign of regeneration. But worst of all were your needs. You felt too wounded, too scared to leave the apartment and find new male attention, new partners, new boyfriends, at least for now. You gritted your teeth, watching your favorite actor Angel Dust's entire catalog on repeat just to keep you from despairing. Though there was still one thing, one person, one number you could call. Shivering, you got up on your feet, shuffling over to your new Voxtag mobile phone, pulling out the golden business card. You sighed. You had thrown away your dignity multiple times already, but this felt on a whole nother level. And then you typed. Though instead of someone picking up, a portal opened behind you, displaying golden clouds and a glass road stretching before you. Sighing one last time, you stepped through. Huh. A strange feeling was overcoming you. Was this peace? All pain was gone, and your bandages crumbled into golden dust, revealing freshly healed scars. You weren't tired anymore. If anything, you felt like you had been reborn. You felt good. Great, even. You looked around. Though there was an ocean of clouds before you, behind you was a golden gate. An angel was humming a tune behind a small desk, a large book before him. So this was heaven. Huh. You took a single step forward, leading to the angel noticing you. He waved at you. "Good evening, little soul. First and last name, please?" You blinked, opening your mouth, almost saying your chosen name in hell, Dazzy. But before a sound left your lips, you hung your shoulders. It's been a long time. I forgot. I don't remember. You had traded the memory of your real name long ago to a deal maker. You didn't even remember who. At the time, you didn't realize just how much power you were giving away simply by doing that. The angel tilted his head, but he smiled. "You are not meant to be up here, right?" You shook your head. "How did you get here?" Embarrassed, you held up the business card. Pentious, the angel, took a step away from the desk. "Oh dear, the last time he did this was, I think 200 years ago. Look, your kind is usually not allowed here. Just let me call him really quick and make absolutely sure you didn't, lie. You nodded quietly. Petrus took a few steps away, out of earshot. Judging by his gestures, however, he was in a heated debate with Adam, ending with the angel sighing in defeat. He returned to the desk. You are hereby officially invited to enter heaven temporarily. Just, he blinked. Please pretend like you actually belong here, okay? We don't want to worry anyone. And we don't want a whole fuss made about this. Please. And no words to the seraphim. Though your colors and smile were dead giveaways, thought the angel. This could work. It worked 200 years ago. Still, once Adam appeared behind the gate 5 minutes later, you were let inside. Man, you must really have missed me, huh? It's been just 3 days. You crossed your arms and hissed. I mean, you killed all my boyfriends. What else can I do? Oh, yeah. Whatever. He now got up in your personal space, his face pressing against your snout. You're lucky you're alive. In fact, I could kill you where you stand, right here and right now. No one would bat an eye. But I'm not gonna do that. You called me for a good time, and a good time I wanna give you. Heaven looked pretty, maybe a bit too bright. Though you were surprised, some of the non-heaven-born angels here were quite furry. Come to think of it, Adam himself looked a little demonic too. Your eyes focused on a very handsome minotaur guy with a pretty little blue halo and angel wings. You'd do him. Your theory right now was that no matter heaven or hell, in the afterlife, your body just turned into whatever felt like you'd enjoy the most. To walk around in for the rest of eternity. Shaking your head. No staring, don't put attention on you, you thought. You followed Adam quietly into a tall, golden building. Inside of glass elevator, you leaned against the wall. So, what do you think, Much better than your shithole, I assume? Ah, too bad you can't live here. After all, hell is forever. I actually wrote a song about that. Do you want to hear it? You snickered and shook your head. Well, actually, I think this is all a little tacky here. Reminds me of my grandma's old place. Adam wasn't offended, but he still didn't like your comment. I'm surprised someone like you ever had a family long enough to remember anything from them. You rolled your eyes and scoffed. Not all demons have mommy and daddy issues, you know. He raised an eyebrow skeptically. What? I didn't say I didn't have any daddy issues. He bit his lower lip, but then burst out into laughter, slapping you on the back a little too hard for comfort. Despite what the two of you were about to do, and despite the words exchanged, there was still a deep-seated hatred for each other. Just so you know, if I don't like your performance, I'll kill you on the spot. You snickered mockingly, but you didn't answer, which really annoyed him. Both of you entered a long hallway after the elevator stopped. This a hotel? He rolled his eyes. Yeah, 'cause no one would take a dirty hole like you into their home. Gosh. No. This is just one of my love apartments. You groaned, annoyed. Ugh, that's a terrible pun. I know. That's the point. At the end of a long, blue-carpeted hallway, you were led into a gigantic apartment. It was more a loft, with white, golden, and black-colored extravagant furniture, as pompous as this prick. He stopped in the middle of what was basically his living room. God, the entire thing was the size of your dead boyfriend's apartment alone. You forced a smile. Let me guess, you got off on showing me how much better you guys have it up here. His facial expression turned evil. You know me well, Dazzy. Angrily, you took 2 long strides forward, grabbing him by his collar. Say my name again, and I bite off your tongue. I like that thigh, sugar tits, he said with narrowed eyes. I got more where that came from, Adam. Too bad I won't give you another chance to talk, sugar tits. He hissed before forcing his mouth on yours. Your eyes widened in surprise. His lips were soft, like baby skin, practically feminine. His tongue too smooth, too wet, too delicious, sweet like honey and milk. Aggressively it prodded into your mouth, past your lips. It was really hard to resist. One of his hands scratched against your muzzle, like an owner scratched their pet. Your eyes narrowed angrily. You had finally realized it. This wasn't just merely a simple curiosity for him, like it was for you. Maybe that's what the angel meant with you not being special. This was a fight, or more, a continuation on your tussle from a few days ago. Confidence suddenly filled your blackened heart. Well, in that case, you'd win. If he had been caring, gentle, and soft, you'd be a sobbing mess already. While you hated being topped, you were a sucker for lovey-dovey lovemaking. His fingers dug into your clothes, tearing them off easily, revealing your supple, bouncy flesh. Such a sinful body, he thought. Grunting, you pushed against him, your arms wrapping so tight around his hips, he hissed as air was pressed out of his lungs, your claws tearing at the belt of his robe, before you pushed him against his apartment's giant window with a loud thud, his horns cracking the glass through sheer force alone. But he liked that. He wanted to see what else you had hiding within you. That fire, that really was doing it for him. The angel raised a finger, and you pulled away. What? I was just getting into it, you barked. Let's keep going on my bed, shall we? He whispered. You sat at the edge of Adam's bed, cigarette in your mouth, casually smoking. Isn't morning already? Next to you on the bed, blanket pulled up to his chin, lied Adam. He was shivering ever so lightly. filled rubbers covering the floor around you. Were that 30? I think I counted 30. It was 31. He gasped in defeat. I had better. Now that hurt his ego. You could tell. Top 20. Can't put my finger on where, though. And your casual tone was making him rage. As you stood up to grab your discarded and torn clothes, he asked with fake confidence. So, same time next year? If you survive, that is. Only if you can then last 35 rounds, minimum. You said, chuckling. I can do that in 6 months. Shrugging, not thinking about the consequences of your actions, you carelessly said, deal. He gave you a look you couldn't quite pinpoint. It made you shudder. He snapped his fingers to open a portal. And just as you said, "Wait, hang on, that's not what I meant," you landed butt first on your bed in hell.
I apologize, Charlie, darling, but tonight I'm very busy with things of a private matter.
Charlie stood there, dumbfounded. It was late in the evening, and what an evening it was. Ever since the leader of the Angel Forces, Adam, announced the new 6 months period for purges, hell had fallen to chaos. And most, if not all, demons were nervous, only made worse by the media who kept repeating the same message of absolute mayhem. They loved it.
We have 6 months until the next purge, and some of my acquaintances are having a little get-together.
But,
No buts, darling.
with a smug grin, the radio demon placed a finger on the girl's mouth to shut her up. But as if on cue, Vagi now interrupted. "But we need your help with the new arrivals!" A bunch of demons apparently seeking redemption were causing trouble, and usually the radio demon threatening them either caused them to flee the premises or at least make them calm down. Alastor scoffed.
Ask that obscene fellow for support. I really have to get going now.
"Nope. Sorry, sweetheart. I have a date tonight," chuckled Angel Dust. Jealous?
In your dreams.
It was such a strange image, seeing Alastor and Angel Dust leave through the Hazbin Hotel's front door together, only to go into separate directions once they reached the street. Alastor rarely partook in anything involving the other demon lords. They were beneath him, and yet powerful enough to simply not bother. After all, the last time he fought one of them, his suit got ruffled up, and finding a good tailor in hell was difficult. Well, at least a tailor that catered to... met Alastor's high expectations. Luckily, the invite was from a demoness the radio demon almost respected. You, Lady von Strauss, were the only demon Alastor would consider almost an equal. Minus Lucifer himself, of course. You're part of a demon species which already was unbelievably powerful. Your primary sin in life had been gluttony. And while usually the sins were beaten to their utmost definition, you were a more classic depiction of it. You were a powerful consumption demon, as beautiful as you were terrifying. As despite the absolute vileness of your kin, you managed to maintain your grace. You and your kind had the ability to absorb other demons into your body. A skin-to-skin touch alone was enough to melt someone into you. This allowed you to partake in all the delicious energy and life force of your victim, since there would be nothing left of them. And worst of all, partaking in the demon's flesh caused a substantial mutation in consumption demons, making them more powerful. Indeed, you managed to reach this spot by embracing your sin. No one dared to get in touching range of you. After all, at any moment you could activate your demonic power and eat whoever you deemed a delicious meal. You were hosting your yearly post-Purge ball, an event attended by any demon who had most of their brain cells intact. It was sophisticated, especially for Hell, and that's why Alastor had so much interest in it. It reminded him of his time as a human, beautiful and enjoyable at the same time. But there was another reason Alastor swallowed his dignity for a single evening and put on a fake smile. And that was to manipulate you. Your power was your greatest ally and your greatness weakness after all. And the reason you left his operations and deals alone was the simple fact that he managed to get you to fall in love with him. An undying loyalty connecting the two of you. And all the radio demon had to do was pretend he could feel the emotion of love and fake sexual attraction to you. Yes, despite everything, you were a hopeless romantic. So much so that at any point, Alastor could kill you. But as of right now, you are useful to him, as the territory you controlled was surrounding his in an almost perfect circle. He used the balls to take just a little more from you each time. Of course, this would mean that you would expand, causing more wars that kept him safe. All he had to do was watch and enjoy the show. With a smile, Alastor walked past your guards. Your ball was always in the same building, so well defended. Even the angels didn't bother attacking it during a purge. And quite frankly, it would take too long. And why waste an entire purge on a couple of hundred demons if they could slaughter thousands in the time it would take them to breach? It was a simple compromise, though still an embarrassment for heaven. The impressive building was a luxurious manor, its interior being shiny, clean, and kept in mostly white and red colors. He was fashionably late, and as he entered the grand hall where classical music was playing, and the posh laughter of countless high-ranking high society demons could be heard, his eyes fell immediately upon you. You were sitting on a silver throne with red velvet padding, in a sophisticated and imposing position. Alastor's smile became toothy as he watched a line of suitors, one of them being so bold as to bow before you. With an almost disgusted expression, you held up your hand before his face, allowing him the grace to kiss it. The obvious danger being palpable, and his hesitation a borderline insult to you. In Hell, your body was slim, but not lanky. You had white hips and a wonderful soft bosom. Your hair was so long it reached down to your knees. It was raven black, your eyes glowing in a seductive pink. Thanks to that, it was enchanting to any man who felt attraction towards the fairer sex. Your lips were beautiful red, and your teeth came in 2 rows and were razor sharp. You even had a thin, long tail, just as pearly white as your skin, ending in a harp-shaped bone plate. Noticing the demon's hesitation, your eyes flashed, and even though the look you gave the demon was less than a second, Alastor could feel that you had seen him, which made him smile. You snapped your fingers impatiently. Finally, the demon pressed his lips on your naked hand. But as he attempted to pull away, he could feel the skin of his mouth stretch. Horrified, his eyes widened. An uncanny pull was felt. Screams muffled by his own skin as it melted into yours. You turned your hand around, his body feeling like honey around your hand. It was just as malleable. For a moment, all he could see were your fingers, and then nothing as his eyes were absorbed. You pushed your hand deeper into his face. A stomach-turning gurgling noise was heard as his body dissolved into you. And for the sweet, sweet moment of your flesh touching his brain, you could feel his fear, but also something else. The singular, blissful second where yours and his own thoughts became one. A truly orgasmic feeling, and the only comfort that would accompany the demon as he was being devoured, and slowly becoming you. Once his thoughts had become yours, he stopped moving entirely, and like a loving mother you embraced his limp corpse, consuming the rest of the demon's body. The entire process took a mere minute, and the other suitors standing around you had stone-cold facial expressions, still enchanted by the power of your looks. They would risk it too, just not yet. And so they quietly stood there until you noticed Alastor, for real this time. You finally allowed them another glance at your beautiful eyes, once again closing them to the power you had. That being giving men pleasure with just a mere glance, you kept your eyes closed most of the time. You hated making people feel good when they weren't making you feel good in return, using your minions' eyes to see instead. Your minions were primarily a race of hellborn demons, usually nothing more than pests. They manifested as floating eyes. With long, sharp tails, they could float thanks to the gases that filled their unique eyeballs. And they fed through tiny holes in their tail spikes. Having absorbed their queen long, long ago, you had become the leader of the hive. They were your precious pets. First and final line of defense. You walked past your suitors without saying a word. Alastor, meanwhile, had descended some stairs that led to the entrance balcony. With a friendly smile, he approached you. The entire party watched in awe as he took Alastor's hand in yours, taking on the first pose of a waltz. So many things had just happened, and not a single word had been said. Your eternal beauty with the rapturous sophistication of Alastor. So many cocks were moving, so many thoughts were being had. The display of you mercilessly killing a demon who wanted nothing more than to be your husband. To you, touching another being without them suffering the same consequences. And then enchanting them with a dance, a slow waltz to truly begin the evening. This entire thing was a vanity project to you, and it always worked. As you and Alastor danced through the middle of the lavishly decorated ballrooms, his lips twitched, incredibly unnoticeable, but you knew him too well. He was mouthing the words, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Alastor was a talented dancer, and he could have done the entire dance routine just like that. But with you in his arms, he didn't want to risk even the tiniest of mistakes. Though that was a small price for the sophisticated atmosphere alone. All the demons present acted like high society elites in the overworld, rather than sex-craved billionaire children. It was oh so pleasant. After the song had ended, you graciously guided him to the buffet. Mountains on top of mountains of just the most sinful delicacies. But one of them made Alastor blush. Humans. Free, in fact, cooked to perfection. Not even the cannibal cafes of hell could procure human meat, usually sufficing with the excuse, "We're demons, you're eating a demon, so that counts." They more often than not were tougher and or drier than human, not to mention the taste of soot and smell of sulfur.
I know, my dear Alastor, that you're a connoisseur of long pig. I know what a connoisseur of long pig you are, my dear Alastor. So I went out of my way and hired a group of imps to get these.
Oh, darling, you always surprise me.
After filling his plate with long pig medallions, made out of decently sized slabs of meat, with sweet berry sauce topped with a layer of finely aged cheese, you watched him eat. And even though all his smiles, all his presentation was fake, just for the benefits you gave him, his ears ever so slightly twitched in delight as this exquisite meal. A bead of sweat ran down your neck watching his Adam's apple move as he swallowed. Truly, an excellent surprise you had made him.
What about you, my darling? Aren't you hungry?
He asked you with a glance. You chuckled, hiding your face with a beautifully decorated paper fan.
I apologize, my beloved Alastor, but as you know, I just ate.
He grinned.
That you did, my dear. That you did.
After some dry political talk of the present demon nobles, Alastor finally managed to talk you into retreating into your study with him. Unlike the rest of the manor, your study was made from a dark, neatly polished wood, with a well-lit fireplace opposite to the entrance, giving the place just enough sparse orange light to be cozy. Shadows danced across the walls, some of which Alastor summoned himself, quietly and unnoticeably, to create just the right atmosphere. Both of you walked past countless bookshelves, hand in hand. From experience, Alastor knew that a third of these were long and rather dry romance novels. Another third was fantasy, but the third was an accumulated knowledge about hell written from first-hand experiences, making this collection rather expensive. No one was here but a single of your floating eyeballs to allow you to see But after a few moments of enjoying your lover's presence, Alastor smiled.
Darling, I must say you always throw the best of parties.
The blush on your face, followed by you snapping your fingers to order your minion out, was a great reward for giving you a compliment. You opened your eyes, looking directly into Alastor's. My dear Alastor, I still have no idea how you can withstand my gaze. And yet, I find that incredibly attractive about you. The answer to your question was simple. He didn't feel any real attraction towards you. For anyone, in fact.
Oh, but, my darling, you do have enchanted me, haven't you? I wouldn't be here otherwise, would I?
Your lip quivered excitedly. This man had wrapped you around his finger. He was the only one who'd get away with it as well. He made you feel like a woman, and treated you like you felt you deserved. Your right hand noticeably twitched before it grabbed his hand again, giving Alastor just enough time to mentally prepare. I wonder how many women took this hand in theirs before me, be it for a deal or something else. You teased with a light smirk. I'd kill them all for that crime. Gently you placed your head on his chest. Oh, Alastor, I wish we could stay like this forever. He deadpanned. Thankfully, you had your eyes lovingly closed for a moment. His face returning to a smile after you turned to look at him. Do you have any desires? Any needs you'd like me to fulfill?
Well, I'd like to talk about this, nuisance, Sir Pentious, if you don't mind.
There was only a slight crack in your expression. Clearly, he was supposed to say something else. But still, I'm listening, my dear.
I have recently invested time and effort into a business that just coincidentally is rather close to his territory. Though it is neutral ground, he often just makes a bother out of his presence. You are the supplier of his weapons. Could you make sure they jam every once in a while?
You smirked. It shall be done, my dear Alastor. And don't worry, I know how to hide the little sabotage.
Oh, that's just wonderful, my dear. Just wonderful.
Charlie was running his ears with worry about the snake demon. Maybe if he blew himself up every more than that. Maybe if he blew himself up even more than he already was, she'd shut up and stop bothering him about Sir Pentious. You placed a hand on his chest, your fingertips gently sliding over the soft fabric of his clothes. Such a shame you're still dressed, you muttered, your eyes darting to his face. Alastor felt that this little favor wasn't worth the effort of taking you, but he needed to keep up appearances. Alastor suppressed a heavy sigh by saying,
Darling, would you allow me to steal a kiss from you?
Of course, my beloved Alastor. All I need to do is ask, and you shall receive. And a moment later, you felt his hot, warm, and unbelievably soft lips press onto yours. His kiss, while calculated, was gentle. He carefully placed a hand on your hip, and the radio demon made sure his red glowing eyes were focused only on your pink ones. He knew how to just show enough pretend enchantment from your abilities to keep you on your toes, while also giving you the comfort of feeling like you were getting what you wanted. And yet still, as always, your tongue was the first to curiously prod against his lips. Suppressing a wave of disgust, the radio demon allowed it entrance. Your tongue was large, slimy, and spongy like a slug. Or at least that's how it felt to Alastor. The only solace was the fact that it at least tasted like expensive wine, your beverage of choice. Meanwhile, your hand snaked up to the collar of his jacket, fingers almost boldly undoing the buttons. His right eyebrow noticeably twitched. Though, thanks to your relationship, it had reached a point where he should just let you undress him. God, how he wanted to scoff at you and push you away, but he couldn't. Thankfully, his expression of disgust was interpreted by you as a sign of eagerness. Your hands pulled at his suit, fingertips now gliding over his exposed chest. I want your flesh inside me, you begged needily, after releasing your mouth from his. And he smiled, before forcing himself to undress you. Then I shall oblige, my darling.
With all due respect, sir, I believe it is time.
Huh? What? The imp butler pushed back his glasses as he cleared his throat.
Sir, it's time for you to, as the cowardice pushes, get back out there.
Ugh. Preminger was an uptight demon, and while being the lowest of the low as an imp, he still managed through discipline and a thirst for power to achieve the rank of Lucifer's personal hand butler, make him one of the few imps who were actually more powerful than most overlords. Prem, I know you want me to find someone else, but who do you think can replace her? The fallen angel pointed at a portrait of himself, Lilith, and Charlie. I mean, look at her. She's perfect.
Sir, I must admit that going out there as they parted with the super goal of finding a replacement is the wrong way of seeing it.
There was a spark in his master's eyes as he said that. Fine, I'm listening.
Do not announce you're searching for a partner, and don't go with the expectations of finding one. Just be open to the idea of allowing someone else to come into your life. You have recently made great progress in rekindling your relationship with your lovely daughter, sir. And I think it is time for you to take the step too.
Lucifer arched his back on his throne. But I don't wanna. Childish, as always, sire, thought Preminger, amused.
I do have an idea to make this more enjoyable for you, sir, if you're willing to listen.
Fine. Sinners came in all shapes and sizes, sometimes more literally than figuratively. But they all had one thing in common. One day, they all gave up. After all, eternity was forever, and so was hell. And all the joys and debaucheries, while fun for maybe, 200, 500 years? Well, those were nothing against the face of eternity. And the demons whose joy had vanished found themselves taking on the form of a lost soul. But with their age came wisdom. While no longer able to enjoy things such as drugs or sex, they enjoyed conversations, alcohol, and cigars. The amount of lost souls was stagnant, thanks to the exterminations from the angels. Most of them lived even below the sewers of the city. Here it was warm, damp, and dark. Down here, in this undercity, the lost souls gathered to spend eternity contemplating, and overall just being sad and regretful. Through a string of bad luck, you had found yourself in the Undercity. One of the few, almost non-lost soul demons. Working at a trucker bar. By the name of The Dead End. With polished wooden furniture, red-painted walls, and hundreds of photos of celebrities going back to the 1930s. Of course, these days very few customers came. Most lost souls didn't even bother with this stuff anymore. Like, hey, I'm gonna go out today, maybe Claire is at the bar today. That was you, by the way. You were Claire. A demoness. You got sent to hell for something unforgivable. You were a water nymph demon. Surprisingly rare in your lair, at least. But more common in the deeper ones. You kept a mostly humanoid shape. Water nymphs were known for their slightly bluish skin, like that of a freshly drowned corpse. Hair, even when dry, appeared to always be wet. And tears pretty much always were at the cusp of flowing out. It took water nymphs an incredible amount of concentration, effort, and training to prevent any sensation, any heightened emotion from causing uncontrollable release of the tear ducts. It was fitting. A depressing little creature such as yourself working in the most depressing section of this layer of hell. But at least it was easy, since there were at a max of like 2 customers a day. You didn't have to do much. You practically just sat around moping all the time, like all the other lost souls down here. However, you were cleaning glasses when a familiar demon came in. "Hey, Lucy," you said chipper, without looking up from the glass. "How do you know it's always me? Tell me." "It's the pep in your step. No one happy ever comes down here except for you." Lucy had been coming for a few weeks now. According to him, he had been looking for a place to drink for quite some time now. His search ending with him up in the Undercity. According to Lucy, the booze just tasted different down here. Well, whatever gets the customers. He also was a little bit of a chatterbox. It had only taken him 10 minutes before he had excitedly talked about a business venture his daughter was pursuing, and yet he refused to give you any specific details about it. Except for that it was going to change lives. You, however, were just glad there was someone else to talk to, especially since 30 minutes ago one of the other nearby living demons had entered. He just tapped his finger on the bar, making you show him the menu. He pointed at the beer and just took it, paid, and sat down. In fact, he was still sitting there, staring at the wall blankly, the beer only half emptied. Suddenly he coughed a little, which was probably the most sound he had produced in maybe weeks. "I take the usual, Claire." "Got it." Lucy always ordered a scotch on the rocks, though he wanted one of the ice cubes to literally be a rock. for a visual joke, as he put it. As you dropped a clean pebble into the half-filled glass, he thanked you with a shit-eating grin. Lucy was quite immature for his age, though he was a handsome demon, dressed in a black and blue showman suit, with a black cylinder, and dark blue eyes with 2 red pinpricks for pupils. So, you mused as you leaned against the bar, one hand on your chin in a casual pose. What are you doing here? Well, I was in town again and thought I'd stop by my favorite drinking hole. He took a sip of the expensive scotch, and you smirked. Oh, really? Sure you just didn't miss me? He pointed a finger at you with a charming smile. Are you accusing me? No, just a hunch. And where might that come from? You leaned back, taking him by surprise. The fact that with each sentence you were coming closer to these. You pointed at your blue lips, a tear unintentionally running down your right cheek. Embarrassed, you swiped it away. Sorry. You blinked a few times and finally you sighed. All right, it stopped. Mind explaining to me what your problem is exactly, Claire? You blinked and then blushed, giving your cheeks a dark, almost black tint. Well, you rubbed over your shoulder in thought. Maybe... okay. You forced a wide grin. How about this? You figure out why I'm down here, and not up there. And then you probably know. He blinked, and you deadpanned. I'm talking about hell. Oh! Lucy crossed his arms. Okay. Deal. He stretched out his hand. I'm not a deal maker. Just shake my hand. It's a friendly gesture. Your right eye twitched. If I lose my soul over this, I'll kill you. You took his hand, and it was as if a cold shower rushed over you. You didn't know why, but there was something electrifying about the contact. Not that you could feel his skin, since he was wearing gloves, but it was unlike anything you ever felt before. After letting go of him, you grabbed a towel for your wet face. Cloth still over your eyes, you leaned over the bar again. All right. Give me your best shot. You were a serial killer. You tilted your head mockingly. Oh, and why is that? 'Cause you make killer drinks. You blinked, perplexed in response to that. He never ordered any cocktails, so the bar just had very good selection of alcohol. So there wasn't any drink making you did. Sorry. Just a bad pickup line, he muttered as he defensively raised a hand. Come on, Claire. Don't make me beg. You crossed your arms. I know. Don't flirt with the barmaid, she's gonna break your heart. Oh God, what a dork. Okay. Let me think of anything more classy. After a minute of deliberation, he smirked. You found your ex cheating on you and killed both mistress and him with a shotgun. Well, that was a relatively good guess. There were millions of scorned lovers in hell. Heck, there was even a species of demon called the Scorned. But no, not why I'm down here. The lost soul at the back of the bar slowly turned his head, facing you. He blinked just as slowly. Once, twice, and then muttered something. Loud enough for you to hear, but not loud enough for Lucy to notice, as he was concentrating too much on your little game. And a shower washed over you. The soul was right, and embarrassed you looked away. The demon chuckled darkly, finally getting the attention of Lucy. Hey, did you say something? But the lost soul no longer felt like talking. What's up with these guys anyways? Every demon down here has all these white glowing eyes and it's just a drag to be around. Lucy scoffed. How can you deal with all this negativity and still be such a ball of sunshine? Ball of sunshine? I guess... Seriously, ball of sun... Never mind. Just... It's the little things, Lucy. But your gaze betrayed your words. It was the fact that the lost soul knew why you were here, or at least could instantly tell, made you shiver. I want to say drugs, but you seem too classy for that. Lucy, are you just doing this to flirt with me? He chuckled. Is it that obvious? The lost soul nodded, and you suppressed a chuckle. Come on, tell me, do I have a chance? He said helplessly, and you smiled. Well, actually, I think you do. I think you're cute, and don't worry, I don't mind that you have a daughter. Lucy felt as if he had been hit in the face by a brick, and he chuckled, unable to contain his excitement and embarrassment. Well, that's great, he shouted. His heart was pounding. But what now? Do we just start dating, or, you know... He was so curious. And you yourself? Leered at the lost soul. He had finished his drink and was right now looking at his phone with a very bored expression, his finger slowly dragging down whatever feed he was reading. Well, we close in 30 minutes, you said to Lucy. Do you think you can wait until then? Hearing you say that, the lost soul blinked, checked the timer on his phone, and sighed. He didn't realize it was this late. Lighting up a cigar, he left the pub. Huh. So, you gonna close early? Fine. But only if you help me clean. Lucy made an almost shocked expression. Sure thing? But as you took a bucket out of the closet, your eyes fell upon a small group of toy rubber duckies. What the? They were cleaning. Proudly, Lucy stood there next to them. I just thought this would speed things up a little. You stepped next to the demon, confused. Where did you... I make them. In my workshop. A little obsession of mine. You picked one up. It had a wet rag in its mouth, which it used to clean. I guess I'm impressed? Who are you really? Lucy inhaled deeply. What makes you say that? No demon just puts down rubber duckies to clean a room like that. They have slaves. Or worse. Well, he tapped his foot on the ground. Only if you tell me how you ended up here. Your shoulders slumped down. Why is that so important to you? He just smiled, but what he didn't want to admit was that depending on your answer, he'd actually consider a relationship with you. Sure, it might be a little shallow, but hey, it's Lucifer. And while sure that may be a little shallow, he had experienced way too many hardships in his life to not be shallow. After a moment of silence between the two of you, only interrupted by the constant quacking of the toy ducks, you sighed. It was selfishness. Lucy raised an eyebrow. I died at the tender age of 30. In fact, it was on my 30th birthday. My own present to myself. Wait, do you mean you know, yourself? You nodded. Yeah. See, I always felt alone. My whole life, for as long as I can remember, I didn't like it. Life, I mean. Even though I got used to it by my teens. Even though I had parents who claimed they loved me, but I suppose it never actually felt like that. They tried to buy my love, if that makes sense. They weren't there emotionally. Like they pretended they loved me. I had friends, but I didn't understand them. I didn't understand how it worked. It was like I was there for convenience, and the moment I became inconvenient, they would leave. Even though they were constantly inconvenient to me, asking me to do things, but when I needed something, poof, they were gone. I never had a boyfriend, only a long string of relatively long-distance relationships with guys twice my age who just wanted a quick wank of my nudes, but at the time it was enough. It made me feel like I was loved. In the end, it was a period of 23 months without one of these relationships that flipped my switch. Thing is, when you throw the gift of life away so selfishly like I did, heaven doesn't want you. There's no one who can forgive me, so there's no redemption as well. I'm stuck here forever. Nothing I can do will save me. But as it turns out, doing it yourself makes you a freak even down here. Apparently I didn't live life to the fullest enough, and my sin isn't entertaining enough. Tough shit. Lucy, without making a comment, gave you back the towel to wipe the uncontrollable stream of tears running down your face. I'm sorry. You muffled into the towel. You probably hate me now. But then he suddenly hugged you. Tightly so. Towel still on your face. It was so warm. Honestly, you were shocked. Normally, scorn and insults followed a confession like this. It took bravery to admit that, he said quietly. You puffed into the towel in response. Do you want to know my secret now? You sniffled. Just a little longer. Lucy smiled, tightening the hug, until your breathing became normal again. He then let go of you and took a step back. Well, you were honest about yourself. Let me be honest about myself. You took the towel off, and despite the flow of tears not having stopped yet, You took the towel off, despite the flow of tears not having stopped yet. Too curious. I'm listening. He tapped a finger on his chin. Actually, why don't I show you instead? Snapping his fingers, the color of his suit changed to white and red. Eyes changing from a dark blue to yellow, and even his hat changed. He snapped. Out of his pocket, he took a tiny crown which he placed on the brim of his top hat. He snapped with his left hand. A black scepter with an apple at its other end appeared. Lucifer wanted to grin. He knew you were still emotional, so he contained himself, keeping it at a more dignified, almost smug smile. Your jaw dropped, even though your lips remained closed. And just a bit of color returned to your wide eyes. Shaking, you pointed a finger at him. You're Lucifer, you stuttered. I hope that doesn't change anything, he said, smiling. So what is this? You flirt with innocent demons, get them to admit their worst ever moment in life, and then what? Well, no. See, he elegantly sat down on a nearby bar stool. My wife Lilith, we have been separated 7 years ago, in fact. I was stricken with the worst of griefs, and, well, he picked up one of the rubber duckies. I just tried to waste time. He put it back, sighing, and then looked you in the eyes. My butler, Priminger. I should get out again, and he just wouldn't let up. Fed up with him constantly demanding I get out there again, I changed my identity to Lucy. I didn't want to find someone who knew who I was. I would never know who is nice to me just because of my status as King of Hell, and not to mention that practically everyone in Hell is an asshole, slut, druggie, or serial killer. But, for example, my daughter believes in them, and I have to admit, I recently spent some time with her and her friends, and I start to see her vision, at least a little. And so my search eventually led me to Undercity. To my shame, I must admit, until that point, I didn't know it existed. And I met you on my search for a drink. And the more I talked to you, your humor, your personality, everything that just made me realize maybe my daughter is right. There's God in this rotten place. You just have to really look for it. And I guess unintentionally I did that. He scratched her shoulder, a little embarrassed. I like you, Claire. And I'd like to spend even more time with you. This time no secrets or ulterior motives. I realize I'm risking the faint hope I have in the people of Hell by doing this, he thought to himself. You rubbed your hands together as you thought about what to say next. There was a curiosity. Something you wanted to ask, but that was completely out of place for this moment. The question of, what if I lied and said I was a serial killer or something? But that's what your brain wanted to ask. Meanwhile, your heart almost jumped out of your chest. I don't care. You spoke slowly, and for a moment he looked at you offended. I mean, I don't care that you're the Lord of Hell. I mean, I do a little. But I like you, Lucifer. You're good company. You're handsome, you're nice, you're creative, you tell good stories, and Your point of view of things is refreshing. Your eyes darted towards the windows of the pub. I mean, considering the people I interact with on a daily basis, you're practically a stand-up comedian. What I'm trying to say is I think I can see myself falling in love with you. Lucifer blushed and stood up. Taking 2 steps, he was now right in front of you. While Satan wasn't tall himself, you weren't big either. You were on equal height. So as he stared into your eyes, he smirked. That's a good answer. He then leaned forward, hugging you. Little awkwardly, sure, but then you whispered, "If you want to, you can kiss me. I don't mind." You hushed. Right into his ear. He smirked into you before his lips pressed into your neck. Lucifer's mouth felt fiery hot on your cool skin. Your toes curled. He was still an angel, in a way. A fallen one, at least. An original one as well. And you could feel his divinity in this moment. Your hands turned to fists, biting your lips. You felt weak in your knees, as every muscle in your being tightened. You exhaled out of your mouth in heavy bursts of air. A groan escaped your lips, legs quivering as a hard wave of pleasure shot through every nerve of your entire being. You just came, just by a simple peck on your neck from him. This angel, this divine being far beyond your comprehension. Oh God, you heard him snicker into you. As Lucifer leaned back to look at you, he put a thumb on your chin. You make the most beautiful noises when you come, Claire. Crap. He could tell. The tears that now ran down your cheeks came from utter embarrassment. I'd like to hear it more. Those noises. Please don't make me beg. His eyes glowed in a lust-filled pink. And in response, you pursed your lips shakily. But he huffed. Well, you definitely weren't lying with your lack of experience. So snickering, Lucifer took control, pressing his lips on yours. You inhaled deeply through your nose. Almost immediately your eyes rolled back. Satan kissed you with zero abandon. He just enjoyed your lewd, desperate noises too much. Literally unable to help himself. You were so cute. Suddenly, your back hit the wall, hearing the loud clatter of bottles behind you. Though luckily they didn't break. Now Lucifer became a little forceful. He hummed quietly as lewd smacking noises reached your ears. He allowed you to exhale one more time before you separated. Your tongue was lewdly hanging out of your mouth. Your first kiss had been with an otherworldly, infinitely powerful, ethereal demigod angel and lord of hell itself. How could anyone or anything ever beat that? I love you, you hushed breathlessly, and without thinking. Good. could, Lucifer.